Hello everyone, this is Becky at Truckwin, and I am going to do a quick little webinar. I'll try not to take up too much of your time and go over what we've been working on here at Truckwin during 2007. And there are a few little enhancements in there from 2016 because I know that I did not do a webinar and I'm not sure if everyone fully saw what the updates were. So there's going to be some of those mixed in too. So if you see something and think, well, I already used that, well, you probably found it in the 2016, last year's version. So as you can see, one of the main things that we worked on is a new look for Truckwin. So what you're seeing on the screen is actually going to be the main screen of Truckwin. Now, if you really liked orange, you're probably going to be heartbroken, but I'm guessing most people are going to like the screen a lot better than the bright orange. It's a little more easy on the eyes. Keep in mind that Truckwin itself is exactly the same behind the scenes, so think of it as a new skin on the same product. So don't worry about things being in different places and not being able to find stuff because it's all going to be in the same place, just cleaned up and newer looking. And so with that, I will get started. Go as quick as possible, but yet give you some details here. I'll start with dispatch. And so this will now be your main screen with your different modules. So I'm going to click on dispatch. And I go to this screen. And rather than all of the buttons on the left-hand side, we're just going to have a simple list here. And you may notice a few slight wording changes. Those are just to make things a little more easy to understand, but all still the same concept. So enhancements in Truckwin, if you're looking at the PDF attached with the email that I sent out, we'll start at the first page and we'll just go through them. So the first one is added color coding to the whiteboard dispatch trips. So you know that we already have color coding for pending loads on the pending board. We now have an option, as you can see over here, on the active or dispatch trips, you can also set up color codes. Very helpful for people that use dispatch in real time. And where you set that up, the easiest way to get there would be to go to dispatch trips. And down here in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see dispatched active trip priority code. If I hit view codes, I can set those up to mean whatever I want. Right above that's the pending board. You may be using it, may not. Maybe time to start. Next, added revenue to the frequent trip report. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up a load. It's an unassigned load. And guess I'll just do this. Here we go. Okay, if you use frequent orders, which are designed if you do the same trip over and over, rather than having to put that trip in each time, you can save time and set up what we call a frequent order, where you can enter in the bill to, origin, and destination. You can also add drops, revenue, mileage, anything like that. So when you need to put this trip into the system, you can just come into this screen and do select. But that's always been there, at least for the last 10 years, but you may not have known about it. One thing that we added here is if you need to print a list of your frequent trips, maybe to go over them, when you hit print, previously it just gave the locations and we added revenue to it. So now when you print this report, you'll be able to see the revenue stored with it as well. Next page. Added an option to search by state on the customer list. So our customer list, which you can find in dispatch, billing, and AR, there is now an option if you want to search for customers by state, you can put your specific state check in and choose state. The next one you may have noticed in 2016, may have not. I believe this is one of those ones that was added in 2016, but I don't believe a lot of people know about it because I get contacted quite a bit on how to void out a driver advance that was either put in by mistake or possibly doubled, which I guess would be by mistake as well. Regardless, you want to get rid of it. In under advanced system, you are going to see void driver advances and void owner operator carrier advances. So the driver advances would be your basic driver advance, and owner operator would be if you advanced an owner operator or a carrier. You can void those as well. The screen's pretty self-explanatory. It'll come up, it'll show all of your advances. You can narrow it down by trip number, date range, specific driver to help you find what you're looking for. Then you would just highlight the advance that you want to delete and come down and hit void selected advance. And that is going to do your general ledger entries for you and basically take care of it throughout the system. So that's all, the only step you would have to do to void a driver advance. Back to our customer list, we made some changes to how this is going to look. So I'll open that up here. So if you go to add or update, I'll go ahead and just do add. You'll notice the screen is quite large. We separated out into different sections because there was getting to be just a lot of data all on one screen and kind of hard to keep track of what's what. So we've got our basic company information. Then down here we've got dispatch information to specify like what kind of contact it is, any special instructions. We added this collection information more so for the people in charge of collections to help make their job a little easier. So for contact person, name, email, that would be the collections person. So the person doing collections for your company, who they need to contact and the notes they need, because they don't really care about driver instructions or dispatching notes. And then your basic billing information, some defaults if you require things. So you'll notice the customer screen will look a little different. Same data, some new stuff, just kind of rearranged. Next, omitted social security number from showing in driver list. Previously, in the driver list, I'll go ahead and just update one here. This area right here used to have the social security number listed for the driver, and it was brought to our attention, why have it there? Dispatchers don't need to see social security numbers. So we got rid of it in the driver list. However, it is still listed in payroll in your employee list where it needs to be. It's just not listed in the driver list from dispatch. Next, added zip codes to the address in the view trips, view print detail report. This is just a quick little add. If you were going to view trips, I'll just do completed. And I'll open up my date range here because I'm in a sample database. Previously, if you would hit view print detail, oh, should have chosen one. Let it come up here. Previously, when the address would print on here, it did not have the zip code. Not sure why, but it didn't. So we went ahead and added the zip code to that report. Moving along, there was a change or a few changes in the fuel advances. Previously, when you did a fuel import, and I'll see if I have a file to pull up here. It's in red, so we all know don't post that because it's in red, but that's not what I want to show you. Down here where it says post each category as a separate advance. Previously, that would be unchecked and you would have to hit you'd have to check that right before you hit post advances if you wanted your fuel and cash separated out. And I don't know why you wouldn't want it separated out. Otherwise, it lump sums it. So we went ahead and defaulted it. So now it's going to automatically be checked. However, if you would like, you can still uncheck it, but by default, it will be checked. I'm sure every once in a while, someone may have come across a time they forgot to check it and everything is lumped together, and it can be kind of a mess if it's not what you want to happen. The next one, updating fuel imports to handle more than just fuel and cash advances. Don't really have anything to show you on this, just to kind of explain what was happening in the past with the fuel imports. We would get fuel and cash, and that's it. And it was pretty simple to separate those out and get those into whatever expense account that they went in. And we started seeing things like scale fees coming across, tolls, a lot of different things coming across that they're able to pay for with their fuel cards. I believe you could even buy clothes or food, anything you want with these cards nowadays. So we had to adjust how Truckwin reads those files to be able to get those categories posted correctly. So there are about 5 different what we call other columns that you can sort things into. If you have questions on that, you can just ask, but that's what that feature is. And then the last thing in dispatch is integration with PeopleNet. We did spend the year working on an integration with PeopleNet, and happy to say we did complete the part that we wanted. We split it up into 2 sections. The first part is sending dispatch information from Truckwin Dispatch to the PeopleNet boxes in the truck. So the driver gets the information. As soon as you assign it in Truckwin, it's sent over. Happy to say that that is completed and working. And we are presently working on part 2 of that, which is going to be Truckwin receiving the unloaded data from PeopleNet. So when the driver finishes his trip or unloads it, puts it in his little PeopleNet box, it would flow into Truckwin and alert you that that trip is unloaded. Basically, what we're going for is kind of an automated dispatch where when you dispatch a trip, it's going to send it out. When it's unloaded, it's going to send it back. But you can still manage those trips in dispatch. It's just going to make life a lot easier for dispatchers. And that concludes dispatch. So if you're a dispatcher watching, you can go ahead and go now, and I will keep on going. Next, freight billing. There's the new look for freight billing. Added the option to have your billing date equal delivery date. What that means, there is an option right here that says use delivery date as bill date. So presently, what it uses for a bill date is when you actually process the bill. So if you go into Truckwin and double click on a bill, it populates a bill date for it. And then when you print it and post it, it prints with that bill date. This option allows you, regardless of what day you print and what day you post, it's going to use the delivery date as the bill date. And also when you post into the general ledger, it's going to post using the delivery date as the bill date. Next, this I believe is from 2016 also, but I'm going to go over it anyways because I get a lot of calls on this and try to end up fixing a lot of issues as far as reconciling accounts because of this. So in billing under utility, well, it's defaulted the reversal date to be the original posting date when reversing. So in freight billing under utility, you go to reverse posted freight bills. And I'll just view all. And it's going to list all of your bills here. Previously, when you would reverse, It would default to today's date. And if you didn't change that to match the invoice date, then you're going to have your reversal on a different day. And when you repost that invoice, it's more than likely going to repost on the original date. So you'll end up with two postings on one date and the reversal in some different day, which could be months different depending on when you reverse it. So all that we did here was force the general ledger date to be the actual invoice date. So when you do the reversal, it's going to wash the entry out how it's supposed to. Next, added a print list option to non-freight billing. And you may or may not know, Truckwin does have a non-freight billing section designed to bill anything that is not tied to a trip. So if you need to bill a company something for a lump sum or for a tire, anything, you can do what we call a non-freight bill. And that's up here on the top, and I can go to non-freight bill billing list. And this would be only your non-freight bills in here, and we just added the print list button there. So you can print a list of what you have sitting in there. The next one is a setup for consolidated bills. If you use consolidated bills in Truckwin, you will know they can be a little complicated to set up as far as what you want printing on your bill. So in Truckwin, under Maintenance, Freight Bills Setup, Consolidated Bill Print Setup. How a consolidated bill works is you basically have 75 characters of text. And for that 75 characters of text, you can pick what you want to comprise that 75. We added the option for the bill of lading to be in there. It was not. So up to 15 characters, you can now have a BOL printed on your consolidated bill if you so wish. That concludes billing. Next, we will go into accounts receivable. And this option has a little bit to do with collections as well. As you can tell, we kind of had some requests for collection information being a little more user-friendly in Truckwin. So one thing that we did, building off of the customer list, if you recall, we've got this collection area. Now, when you go to your aging report, there is an option to include collection information. What that will do for you when you print your aging report, it will print out the collection information, just making life a lot easier for collections. They've got right on there who they need to call. They have the collection phone number, not the dispatcher's phone number. Basically to make life a little easier to get your money. Next, added an invoice range option on the cash receipt activity report. So under reports, cash receipt activity report, there is now the option to enter an invoice range. The next one is a big one. I get a lot of calls on this where people post cash receipts in AR. Then whether it's when they do their bank rec or whenever, they realize they posted it wrong. Maybe they applied it to the wrong invoices or wrong company. You name it, I've heard it. So we did develop a utility that will allow you to reverse your cash receipt that you applied rather than call me and have me do it in the tables, which I can still do. But I encourage you to check this out. So under utility, you will see reverse posted cash receipts and adjustments. And I'll open up my date range here. So all of your cash receipts will be showing in here. You can go by customer range, invoice number, whatever you need to do to find what you're looking for. highlight the one that you need to void out and click void. That will go ahead and void that payment out and open that invoice back up and put it back in your receivable list. Very excited for that one. I think a lot of people will really like that. It just allows you as the user to be able to fix some of your mistakes. Next, accounts payable. Only one little change in here. Accounts payable doesn't really change much. We added an option that allows you to use duplicate check numbers for handwritten checks. Previously, if you went to post handwritten check, oh, I'll just select one. Oops. I clicked on the wrong thing. Post handwritten check. Okay, previously you could not repeat check numbers in here, and some people using the handwritten check, they're doing so because maybe it automatically came out of their account. They don't have an actual check number. So basically we just made an option so it doesn't mess everybody up, but just an option to allow duplicate check numbers for handwritten checks. And that duplicate check number would be for different vendors. General ledger. If you're a good accountant, you'll notice that window I just closed out of. You don't want that. It means my general ledger is off, but I'm in a sample database, so that's fine. General ledger added an option to print a balance sheet for a closed year. So if I go under report to balance sheet, or actually prior year balance sheet, previously you could print what Truckwin considers a prior year, which would be 2 years back, but there wasn't a way to print just the year before what would be in general ledger history. And so we just added an option to be able to do that. Next, we will head into payroll. And payroll, the first one says added option to print a specific group when printing summary of payroll by date range. So that is a report. So under reports, if we go to summary of payroll by date range, an option to print the specific group. Previously, it was all or nothing, just your date range. The next one, I don't really have a visual for you, but we had quite a few customers saying having the fuel print on the payroll settlement was confusing some of the drivers as far as advances and what's coming out of their check and what's not. So what we did was set it up so that on the driver settlement report, the fuel will no longer print on there. Cash advances, yes, those will still be on there, but the fuel is not going to print on there, so it should be a little more cut and dry for the drivers to understand what's on their settlement and what they're being paid for. Another thing added to the settlement in payroll is the word drop or pickup, which is before it just said other stops and it didn't have the designation if it was a drop or a pickup. So we went ahead and added that. So then that just helps the driver to know that, oh yeah, that was a pickup here and this was a drop. The other thing, added total miles, total deadhead miles, or sorry, total loaded miles, total deadhead miles, and total miles on the payroll settlement. So now at the bottom of the settlement, and you can look at the PDF to see if you want to see a visual of that, says total loaded miles, total deadhead, and total loaded and deadhead at the bottom of their settlement. The next thing, reports, the per diem report in payroll. If you were running this, you would have noticed it prints all of the drivers whether they have per diem or not. So now it will only print the drivers with active per diem for that date range. And we'll skip down to management reports. And the first thing we have here is revenue reports under the revenue report by dispatcher. We added an option that says print summary. If you were using this report before and hit print, you would get detail on all of the trips each dispatcher had, which could turn into a really long report full of good data. But a lot of times you might just be want to see numbers, like how many trips did dispatcher ABC have. So print summary, you'll see what it does is it lists all the dispatchers that you have in your database and whatever date range you put in, and it lists how many trips they have. And over here is your loaded miles, deadhead miles, total revenue, the percentage of pay, and the net amount on what you made for those trips. So kind of a nice little report if you're doing a lot of things by dispatcher. Next, we've seen quite a demand for things with the MC number for the customer list. So under standard reports, the first tab here is customer. This is where you can go to print a list of your customers and stuff. If you go to print full report, you will see there is now a place for the MC number to print on this report. I believe what some people do with this is from this report, they come up here and export it to Excel. So it's kind of nice to have all the data there. And next we will skip down to revenue settlements. First thing, I'm going to go over a few options. Speaking of like the MC number and stuff, in revenue settlements under RS setup, we now have an option to require a unique federal ID number and require a unique MC number. So if you turn these on, it is going to basically ensure that you don't end up with doubled up information on your owner operator or carrier list. Not so much owner operators, those are usually your drivers, but carriers, what we see a lot is you end up with 2, 3, or 4 IDs, different IDs for the same carrier because nobody knew it was already in there. Maybe they couldn't find it, maybe they didn't really look. But what this would do is if you are entering MC numbers in or federal ID numbers and you try to enter one in that's already in the list, it will not let you put it in. It'll alert you. So that will kind of just help you keep a handle on mainly like a list of carriers. Next are some options on the revenue settlement that prints. That you can either do reprint settlements from history, or when you're done writing checks, you can do the print revenue settlement. So a few changes to that. We added printing the driver name. So in Truckwin, if you assign the load to a carrier, there's a place to type a driver name in there. That was not printing on the settlement, so we added that to print on the settlement. So if you type a driver name when assigning it to a carrier, that will now print on the settlement. We added total miles to the bottom of the settlement and added unloaded origin to the settlement. So now it's also going to show the owner operators where they were coming from, just kind of more information for them. Then the next thing we did, this is kind of more so accounting, but in RS setup, we went ahead and added a place for a default expense account. So normally in Truckwin, by default, the expense account is 5010. Let's say you want to use a different account. maybe 5010 is your owner operators and 5015 you want to use for carriers. For example, right now, when you hit add, it's going to use 5010. So if you do not want 5010 to be your default expense account, you can type in whatever expense account you do want to use. And when you hit add in the future after that, it's going to default to that account. If you leave it blank, it's going to keep it on 5010. And that concludes individual enhancements. Just kind of some general ones. As you can see, Truckwin does have a new look. We did go through the menus and wording and try to simplify some descriptions, more so applying to like what activity is it that you want to do, as far as what we name the things in the menu. So you might notice a little bit different wording, but it should make a little more sense to you. We also went through and most of the crystal reports in Truckwin, when you would open them, it would open a little window in the upper left-hand corner. They will now open to full screen because if you're printing out the report, you want to see it anyways. So why not save yourself a click and just have it open as full screen? Also, anywhere that there's grids in Truckwin, we tried to make those a little larger, so a little less scrolling through data to see what you're looking for. So you'll probably notice that as well. So if you pull up a screen you're used to and you think something's different, it's probably bigger. So just keep in mind, Truckwin is still the same, just has a new skin on it. With that, I will go ahead and conclude this little webinar. I will be updating our server, so those of you who log into the Truckwin server remotely, these changes will go into effect January 1st. If you are a local install and had a service contract in 2017, then you will want to contact me. I would say email is the best to get this scheduled. And my email is Becky, BECKY, at truckwin32.com. Most of you know that, but so if you are a local install and you had a service contract in 2017, get a hold of me so we can schedule your upgrade because you're going to get all these changes. Any other questions, feel free to call, email, and we'll get them answered as best we can. Thank you.